you just start to lose a bit of the passion, of seeing that traction and how quickly Mary and Jane started to take off. It felt, you could see that our business was fine, modest growth, but I was not the person to bring that attention there. I got to hand this off. It's not done, but I'm not the person anymore. I'm not excited to like innovate or do something different. I'm just over it. And I kind of want to give it to the next person who can give that next lifeblood into it.
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Greetings, everyone, from my Hamptons house out this summer. One of the great things about my Hamptons house is that it's like a cozy cottage where my entire family can get together. One of the downsides of this cozy cottage is that it is entirely open format. And so there could be at any moment a child screaming or someone running through the house or a dog. It could be anything. So anyway, here I am, and I'm very excited to introduce you to this guest, Laura Roos. Let me tell you why I'm obsessed with Laura Roos, okay? Laura built Minnie and Paul, which was a corporate gifting company out of Minnesota. See if you can guess why it's called Minnie and Paul, by the way. And she built it to well over $1 million, grew it steadily for years, and then became obsessed with the concept of a market for microdosing cannabis. So she felt like called to her next business as a serial entrepreneur. And she knew at that point she had two options. She could keep running the business with the president that ran it already, or she could sell it and go all in. Now, Laura falls into that sweet spot where many, many of the clients that I work with at the Whisper Group fall. They're large in that they are over $1 million of revenue, which only 2% of women ever get to, but they are considered very small businesses. So a broker doesn't pay a lot of attention to them, or, certainly no investment banker or M&A advisor is talking to them. And, she had an interesting experience where she facilitated her own exit. And I can't wait for you guys to hear how it turned out. Her advice is so good. And on this one, it's like, she's so open on the terms and everything that you're really going to get a lot out of this. So this episode is for you. If you are thinking about selling your business, but feeling like you're too small, definitely don't have the funds to invest in a broker, and like just need to figure out your way out, OMG, you need to listen to Laura, LTL. Here we go. Hey, Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, Carrie. This is so fun. What a warm welcome. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm excited to talk about your journey and the arc. And I wanted to start with how Minnie and Paul got started.
I had it's not my first venture. I did have a flop, I would call it, but I did use the money I made from that because I was teaching a lot of yoga, a lot of classes over the course of 2 years, still had a full-time job. So I made about $5,000. With that, I took a bit of a risk and decided that I wanted to focus on this new idea full-time. I'd never really been able to do something like that. I think when you have that sort of push of, if this doesn't bring in money, you have to cut it out of your life. You have to go back to your old job. I was lucky enough to have my boyfriend at the time, now husband. We lived together, and I had this sort of big idea, and I said to him, can we do this for like 4 months? Can I try it out? So the idea just came from, it was 2014, so there was not a lot of ways in which you could find cool local products that are shipped easily to your door, outside of like farmers markets, Etsy. But you'd buy 1 bar of soap and pay, $7 for the shipping. So you thought, I'm trying to support this local artist, but it wasn't made easy. So the idea was, all right, I'm going to create a gift box, all local products, all highly curated, beautiful, good quality. And then they're all going to happen to be from Minnesota. It's not going to be this wild rice, what everyone kind of thinks of should be the Minnesota things. And I really had thought that what was going to be the big market would have been our online store and
Sure.
wedding. That was the
Yeah.
prediction. We barely did any wedding. Our website was, very small. Our D2C, just under 20%. And then everything was a corporate. So it started with like one large company coming to us saying, I love what you're doing. It's a attention to quality detail and it's all Minnesota. That's great. And let's put our logo on this or that. So we did start with one big customer, 200 boxes. And then from there, that was out of my house, duplex. And from there, moved to the next little small spot, then bigger spot, and then our big warehouse, and ultimately selling the business, which was a huge dream come true. But the start was simply like, I just want to create some cool local products and make it more accessible to anyone who wants to support local.
So was it mostly Minnesota-based businesses that purchased from you? That's how it sort of ended up in corporate, people who wanted to honor Minnesota or had their clients or employees in Minnesota, they wanted to buy from you.
Yeah, and it did, you hit a plateau at that point too, because you realize Minnesota is only so big and there has to be a connection to Minnesota. We did have a lot of companies that might say, I'm doing a conference in Minnesota or things like that. But eventually, yeah, we hit this point of, okay, we can't just be only Minnesota. Plus, I loved cool products that I was discovering in other states. So we always had this Minnesota section and a Minnesota pride. And that's where the name Minnie and Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul came from. And it, was meant to be that not everyone, it's immediate Minnesota box or something like that. But for those in Minnesota, they get it, but it wasn't too pigeonholed. That was all part of the plan originally that I knew I'd probably want to expand outside of Minnesota. So then we did a focus on small, independently owned. And we'd always have the Minnesota side of our business. We had a lot of customers who kept coming back for that specific niche. But we also, found it as a way to differentiate within the whole gifting community where we'd say, our specialty is state by state curation. So if you are doing, because one of those first early customers actually was, hey, can you do this, but all Arizona makers? And we're doing this huge conference in Arizona. And now it's really easy. You can use Fair. There's really great
Right.
the wholesale platform, but at the time I was just like trying to find farmers markets in Arizona that I could find the one good hot sauce there. And then maybe that person could recommend, and then we try all the products. And it was a strenuous experience, but we ultimately really want to have the best products in that box for that customer. And then kind of snowball from there, because growing it outside of Minnesota really helped, I would say. It is, again, part of our business, but we wanted to we needed to grow. We needed to expand. And I'm glad we did.
And do you attribute that growth to word of mouth? Was there something specific that you did to help facilitate the growth? And really, where did you take it? How did it get there?
The interesting thing about having a gifting company is you're never really talking directly to your customer. So typically someone is buying it, it gets shipped to someone else, and that end person, I'm not getting to speak to the customer who bought it typically. But it is a nice little machine of word of mouth, because someone who bought it, the new person who received that gift, if they had a good experience, they're a completely new customer for us, really. So that part of gifting is great. You kind of have that snowball effect, especially when we would do a large order for, let's say, Target, and they're sending out 2,000 gifts all in one day. 2,000 new people now know about us. For maybe one of them shares it with their husband.
So it's inherent word of mouth in that way.
Yes, it does. And it works that way really nicely. And then the pandemic was pretty massive for us. Our business really grew over 2020 and 2021. At first it was, what's happening? Like everyone, we were quite fearful of what was going to happen next. When it came to the business, I remember we created a line that was, a lot of our products are on the higher end on the price point. And we were, okay, we need something a little more affordable right now. Everyone's losing their jobs. But we need to bring happy moments to people and spread some light and love. And so that was a early day part of it. But then the corporate side really, really jumped up, because all of that money they had for in-person was now being directed to, we need to keep our customers, our clients happy, and everyone's at home. So what can we do? We could increase that gifting budget that we had before, a lot more conferences, Zoom stuff. So we saw a huge uptick in due to the pandemic.
Okay, so you see this uptick and the business grows. How do you know that it's time to sell? And talk to me a little bit about your experience, because I know it wasn't um, linear, right? It wasn't like you made the decision, here's what you did, and then boom, you sold. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I knew that, I mean, a lot of business owners might kind of hit that 7-year itch. You just start to lose a bit of the passion.
Mhm.
So I was pulled to, I started another business so I started a business called Mary and Jane in November of 2023. So I knew kind of leading up to that, that also took a year and a half or so of building it to launch it. So something to keep in mind there is I had an amazing COO who managed the dailies of the business. I was pretty hands off. So without her, I wouldn't have been able to see, okay, this is where my direction of focus, passion is in Mary and Jane, and I really want to take this to the next level. At the same time, of seeing that traction and how quickly Mary and Jane started to take off, it felt, you could see that our business was fine, modest growth, but I was not the person to bring that attention there. I could tell it, like, I got to hand this off. It's not done, but I'm not the person anymore. This is not, I'm not excited to like innovate or do something different. I'm just over it. And I kind of want to give it to the next person who can give that next lifeblood into it.
So you felt like you took it as far as you could go with it. It was in a good space, and you were now passionate about something new, which was Mary and Jane. Tell us a little bit before we go into the sale. Tell us a little bit about that start. And were you called to that? I'm so interested. My husband did this too. When we launched Likeable, he then launched a second company and then went with that while I ran the agency business. I'm always interested in founders that start something new while they've built the first one. And so I would love a reflection on that, and tell me a little bit about Mary and Jane too before we go into the sale.
Sure. I was also very pregnant at the time too, of deciding I'm going to start this cannabis, microdose edibles cannabis business, which again, all my businesses, I had a yoga business, I had a gifting business, and here cannabis, very different industries. And that was sort of what my pattern is. My pattern is seeing something that I feel like is a hole or a gap in the market and really getting really excited about it, and not being able to focus on anything but that gap that I see.
Mm.
So it was simply that I actually was not a regular cannabis user. For me, I always was taking too much. What I figured out later during this kind of trial and error process of what is my dose, like what is that perfect point in which I feel the effects of cannabis that I want. I want to be in control. I want to be functional, but I want to take the edge off. What does that look like? I always have an extreme experience. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So that really intrigued me. And I learned that, it only takes a tiny bit for me to feel what I want to feel. And then same with my co-founder, we sort of just came at that and realized that the problem with cannabis is dosing. So we introduced this 1 milligram melts in your mouth, gives you a really fast acting response. And it only takes like 1 or 2 milligrams for a lot of people, to feel something that they are looking for. Now, other people, that's the thing that's wild about dosing and about your THC tolerance, is that, you might require a lot more. Someone require way more, way less. And it's about, the customer being able to feel and figure out what that is. So
Yeah.
I just got kind of obsessed with it. And then it truly was something that I couldn't stop thinking about. Again, I was pregnant. And so my co-founder, Rachel, who I approached, I said, look, I really want to do this. In Minnesota in particular, there was a law that basically put stronger parameters around hemp and hemp-derived cannabis, which is federally legal. And because of that, every brewery, the products everywhere. And I was just starting to notice them. And my husband would come home with some stuff. And I was saying, I don't know, it seems like it's everywhere. It's so accessible now, but there isn't a curated place to find, oh, this has the best ingredients, or this has, you know, the dose I should be taking. Like, what is the difference between 5 and 10 milligrams? It doesn't seem like a lot. There's a beverage on the shelf for 10 milligrams. It's a one drink and it's a beautiful, beautiful can.
Right.
And you could just drink all of that and realize 10 milligrams is absolutely not the experience I wanted to go for. So we decided, Rachel started being able to try out a ton of products. She was the tester. And throughout that process, that's where we landed on, okay, maybe we shouldn't be this marketplace of curating these low dose products, but maybe we need to create our own. That's a 1 milligram melt that you can dose up to your desired perfect dose. And that's where Sunny, our first product, was. And once we released it and we're starting to get feedback, and we personally were trying it, after I had my kid, and like it became, wow, there's something special here. And it sort of just became an obsession that I had to free up my time. It was kind of like there's no choice.
So you felt, okay. So basically there was a calling, like you got to this space, like you saw the market, you became obsessed. You're like, okay, now two options I see if I'm in your shoes.
Yeah.
I could run Minnie and Paul profitably with my great COO and just like keep running it, keep extracting the profits, and like just let that go as sort of a just income generating business.
Yep.
Or I could sell it. And it sounds like you decided that selling it was the right approach. What was the reason behind that?
That is such a great point, because that's exactly what I thought about. It's exactly what me and her talked about a lot of, why don't we just keep doing this?
Yeah.
Couple reasons. The business itself was super, super seasonal. Like, I mean, we were running ourselves into the ground for 3 months of the year. You basically will do, in Q4, it might be 85% of your year is that.
Very hard to manage.
Pressure on it. It's a lot. And so no matter what, although I was pulled back, I knew that because we were so seasonal, there were months in which I could be very focused, but I knew at that time I wouldn't be able to. I'd have to be pulled in. And especially if we wanted any type of growth. We'd also just moved into this pretty big warehouse. We bit off more than we could chew.
Yeah.
And after the pandemic years, it was getting clear, okay, everything's good, but it's stabilizing. It's not like we're seeing the growth we were seeing. We're seeing like 10% growth.
Right, because it normalized,
Yeah.
because people started getting together in person and didn't need to send their employees as much stuff. And I totally can see this. Okay.
Yeah.
So you start stabilizing and the seasonal is difficult to deal with, and you invested in a big warehouse because of the whole boom. So now it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this starts to feel like a weight rather than something that is like a help.
That's right. It was getting really tight from the P&L. You know, like our operating expenses went from a really great small spot, $1,500 a month, to
Yep.
over $7,000 a month, you know,
Yeah.
that it just started to say, well, now we have to be hitting these things. Whereas my head goes, okay, if I could just sell this to somebody who already has their own warehouse,
Yep.
they're going to really just see everything above the line, and they're going to say, wow, this is only a win-win for me.
Yeah. People do not realize how much of a win some of these lifestyle businesses can be for an acquirer. A lot of times it's just you're picking up the revenue and you have the infrastructure to support it. And even though it's small, it ends up being such a huge win.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you start this process? Do you go to a broker? What do you do initially?
Yeah. You know, I originally did meet with a broker and a small business broker. It wasn't the right fit. I went to the office. They give you the whole spiel. They evaluate your business. They give you what they think is going to be what we're going to list it at. And, you know, then there's the broker fees. And I don't know. It just was like, I don't know. Something's not for me in this particular moment.
Yeah.
So, and then those brokers, they come at you constantly now that you've shown any interest. But,
Yes.
and okay, so, and they tell you that the process itself is probably going to be 6 months to a year. Like by the time we get, so just keep that in mind. And again, being a very seasonal business, the rate at which Mary and Jane is growing, and I'm like, I kind of got to get out before this.
You don't have that.
Busy season.
That time, because you're going to have to manage that cash flow, and you're going to have to manage the seasonality of the business, and you have a rapidly growing business on the other side.
Right.
So what do you do?
At that point, I got like a newborn too.
Yeah,
I'm like, this
that's
is
right.
not.
Forget about the whole rest of it, right? That alone. So
Yeah.
you
And a toddler in the background making. So okay, so here's what I decided. I'm just going, it's actually from my friend Brett, who owns this wonderful, well sold, a great popcorn company called Maddie and Mays. I had known him or met him through Minnie and Paul because they were one of our vendors. I went out with him, had a coffee, and asked him, I'm thinking about this. Do you have any advice? And for him, he said, I would just email some competitors and
Yeah.
see what happens. And at that point, I really had thought about it, but I was nervous of like, how much do you give away that I'm trying, and it's funny to just get that humble pie of like, of
Yeah,
course you don't.
totally. It's like very uncomfortable. It's and
Yeah.
nerve-wracking and like, what do you say and how do you say it and all of it.
Yeah. And what if they're not interested? And what if you've now just told them I'm like selling him some of
Right.
my numbers?
Yes. Yes.
So you think, and then he's like, just trust me. And he ended up selling to a competitor that by the same process in which so it was a great tip of advice. I then made a list, the one competitor for me that was an easy, obvious choice, was who we ultimately sold to. It's a company called Teak and Twine. And with the launch of Mary and Jane, she had emailed me. So it was kind of a nice, oh, this is like good timing. A very, very sweet email, like, congratulations, I saw on LinkedIn and I just purchased and I love everything you're doing. So that was really nice. So I looked back today at kind of the timeline so that I would be fresh on it. But
Oh, I'm so excited.
so like March, yeah. So I launched Mary and Jane November of 2023. She emails me in November. Congrats, super sweet email. March 7th, I send a very short email. And this is what I would like highly recommend is just like one thing, it just kind of highlighted something that I thought she would be interested in, which is that top line revenue, consistency. We've done over $1 million for the last 3 years. We're consistent. We're a well-oiled Midwest machine. And I send that email to some people I consult with. I've done resend that email to a lot of people because keeping it short and sweet, but saying what do they want to hear.
Exactly.
And then, that same day she emailed me back, like, let's hop on the call. This is actually great timing. I remember being so excited. That moment of like, I'll never forget.
Of course.
Here we go. Because to me, it was a dream buy. It was like, if I could because I had looked up to her and what she built for years. So, it felt great. And the reason she had emailed me, we did have one consulting call 6 years prior. So it just goes to show that all these things may land somewhere, that she then saw, she knew what I was up to. We had such a great back and forth 6 years prior. And then, saw Mary and Jane, thought it was cool, bought it. And I'm now back in her inbox. So we go, then it's like, let's see, less than a week later, we do jump on the call. We have a quick call. I have an LOI 2 weeks later.
How did you facilitate? Did you utilize the valuation from the broker? Did you come with a price or did you let them say like, this is what we think it's worth? Did you have a number in your mind or was it, I want to get out? Like, give me your whole thinking around that, because that's where I think a lot of founders who do this, who facilitate their own exits, get a little stuck because they can't figure out like what the offer should be. Is the offer good?
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, when I got the first LOI, I was super disappointed. I was like, I remember I got it in the car. I was driving and I pulled over because I was like, oh my God, it's finally here. And again, finally 2 weeks from our first conversation.
Yes.
It's so fast. But it was all based on my EBITDA, it's like the standard. I would say if you're a lifestyle business and you do not have any sort of like IP that protects you or anything like that, it's just pretty basic. And like, we kind of both had this, if you're dealing with someone who is, I would say, reasonable and like, which she is, and we just really connected. It was like, yep, that's exactly what, we went back and forth though, because the terms, we went back and forth on things like payout timeline, and then having it attached to percentage of sales, which that would be something I would regret. I don't recommend, which I can get into a little separately of how we actually ended up amending the PA to remove that. But overall, I think you should go in knowing what your and just use ChatGPT. Here's my EBITDA. What should my valuation of a company be? And know your context of your story too. So like for me, the last year, I was an absentee founder, so my modest salary that I was taking could be added back, and that was important. It made a difference in the EBITDA. So, and then also highlighting any big things, like me and my COO both had a maternity leave happen almost simultaneously. So we were both not working for 3 months. So you got to really highlight the story, tell the story of the numbers when you're sharing all of your information. But they're probably going to ask for, your past 5 years of numbers, and make sure you have somebody or hire out a consultant, I would say, to help get that really buttoned up and in order, and feel like you feel confident in, like, this is a price I could get. Yeah, the broker had a price as well, pretty much landed at the same place.
It ends up being the same. That's what I was interested in,
Yeah.
how you knew that the price was right. But I love that you shared that when you first got the LOI, you were disappointed, because many, many founders are when they first get it. Some of it is the surprise of what they're actually worth, but a lot of it is just how it's structured, what
Mm-hmm.
the payout is. And really, that's just the first time you get the LOI is just the start of the negotiation. It's not the be all.
You have to, like, I had to just, like, take a beat. I was like, oh, I felt so like this is not going to happen. And I
Love.
really thought in my head, this is what is going to happen, which is why I would also recommend at that point, I had what I felt like all my eggs in one basket. It was like, it's either teak and twine or nothing, and because I wasn't even the time, that whole factor. So what it allowed me to do was say, okay, I'm going to put together my dream counter. What is it? Just offer it up. Say, what do you want? What really would make this work for you? And have it be reasonable as well. So we went back and forth, back and forth. But during that process of the back and forth counters, we jumped on a call 2 times, which I would highly recommend too. Don't
That's
go over email. It's so, like,
so much better.
and you're wondering, why didn't she respond? It's been 2 days and all that stuff. Just, like, get on the phone. That is a big one for me. It changed everything toward the very end, where we could go and be like, this is what I'm really worried about. And she'd be like, oh, okay. And just clarify my fears. And then I also, at that point, when I knew I felt disappointed, I started to look for other options too. I thought, okay, and that was my dad's advice. My dad, as a entrepreneur that's, sold a couple businesses as well. And he was like, you should not be dealing with just one potential buyer, Laura. Like, you need 3. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start. Then that process, over that month and a half until I did sign it, I reached out to 2 more competitors. And again, one had approached me during the pandemic and said something like, maybe we should, we might want to think about acquiring you. Never happened, but ultimately was an easy starting point into the conversation. And then the other was just kind of lucky. A friend of mine, he's in M&A, but much bigger scale. And he was like, I actually know this couple that's looking for something right now. So then it became that we went back and forth, met with them for coffee, exchanged a lot of information. And ultimately it just really helped for me to get clear that this is who I really want. Like, it's like dating. It was great. It really helped. And I would say ultimately we got to the place where I was like, okay, this feels right. And its terms are really important.
What was the best thing you think that you negotiated, and what is something looking back you would do a little differently?
Oh, it was great. Okay, so what I would do differently, right, which ended up happening differently, which is great. What I would do differently is that originally we had it tied to sales. So is this a payout? The other thing is, know your buyer. Like, I knew she didn't have all the cash to do some huge upfront payment.
Correct.
That's not going to be possible.
Yep.
She's in a seasonal business as well. So that's what's nice, is being able to say, look, I know exactly how your books look, right? Because you're basically my books times.
Right. Same.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just say that, how about we do it this way? And she's like, yeah, that's great. Actually, at the end of the year, I kind of need to get rid of some. So
Exactly.
basically we did it over 4 years,
Okay.
and, incremental payments. And I liked that as well, because it could feel to me like a salary that I'm managing myself while I build Mary and Jane. So I had this pressure taken off. I'm not getting some
income that you knew would be coming in. Yes.
That's right. That's right. So it felt perfect in that sense. What I would have done different, which we did do different, was I had it tied to sales. I had a base or a floor of, like, it's going to have to be this number per year, and it would increase. And then and that would be if you don't grow the company at all. That was the floor, basically.
Right.
So this just kind of stays the same, fine. But I feel like you're going to grow the company, and that's the sell of it all the opportunity that if I go to you, you're going to grow it, right? So if you're growing it, I'll get 10% of sales of all mini impulse sales. What ended up happening. That was part of the deal. Then the deal is signed. That's what we did. What is tricky about having something like that, which again, maybe you don't have the option, but what I found was I was still then involved in the business and I
I
wanted
was
to.
going to tell you it's a perverse incentive of because you wanted to be free to go to Mary and Jane.
Yeah.
So then you're having to track the sales and yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we were, things would come up where I'd be like, they haven't sent a marketing email in like 4 months or 3 months. Cause after 4 months, and I would say that to her and she'd go, no, that can't be true. And then it's, oh my gosh, what's going on? And
Because she's busy, not from bad intention, but
right.
sometimes it's like priorities change or things change. And okay. So you renegotiated post deal?
And we renegotiated. And actually it was because she came to me and said, look, this is getting kind of hard. And we, at that point too, I couldn't really make it super clear that I sold and not, we tried to do a small little bit of announcements because part of it was only on Minnie and Paul sales. So if a large corporate client just thought that we were now Teak and Twine and they went from us to Teak and Twine, I wouldn't get any percentage of that.
Didn't tell anymore. So you had to separate it. You had to keep it separated to track the sales.
Yeah. And it was sort of that you'd want to almost people at Minnie and Paul to not know that, not that they wouldn't know, but hey, business as usual.
You want to keep the brand. You don't want to raise alarms and what made you special. They want to still order through you. Okay.
And that was all fine and well-intentioned. But then it became that Torrance, the founder at that company at Teak and Twine, an owner there, she has to run 2 separate businesses. And she's like, this is not, and it's very true. So it actually came at kind of this perfect moment where she's like, I want to combine everything. We'll have it as part of our, family of brands, but having it be that we're separate is making it really hard. And I was like, this is perfect because I don't want to have to look over and look at all the sales that are coming in and wonder how we're doing on all the deals that are running and what big ones we've got coming in and how those are going to close. And is your account manager like equipped enough to do it, which she's been amazing, but it felt like I don't want to be involved. I was like, I don't want this. I have too much other stuff going on. So it was perfect timing. And the best part is that in our counters prior, we had already a deal that didn't involve tie to sales. We had something that was like
an alternate version that didn't go through. Ultimately, you decided on sales, but there was an alternate version.
There was an alternate version sort of already agreed upon that we both liked. So it's very easy to be like, hey, can we just go back to that? Great. Call it a day. And that was then 4 months after. So we'd basically done like 1 quarter of this, a little over a quarter of the new where I'm getting 10% of the sales, I'm too involved. She's having to do too much as well. And then just being able to have that transparent, great relationship that we had was huge. So being able to come to me and say, we need to relook at this. What can we do? And it was great. I'm so glad because now I just get payment every quarter. This is the same amount. And it's great.
Like it creates predictability for her and for you and allows her to truly run it and have you out of it. Yeah.
That's right.
That's fantastic. And I love the sharing. Actually, the first time on the Exit Whisperer, I think we've heard that of like the retrade on like how you might make this work for both of you. And I think for smaller companies like this, where it's an entrepreneur buying another entrepreneur's business, there's a lot that can be done there. So that's really, really, really great insight. Okay. And so now, how long ago was that? When did this happen? That was 23 still or 20?
That would have been, it's been a little over a year now. So it was July of 24.
24. Okay.
July 24, everything happened. So from like the day I sent the first email to, and I'm looking over here because I wrote notes. Because my brain, what is happening? Too many other things have gone on. But it feels like yesterday, but it was about a year ago that this happened. And it was, from the email, it was less than 3 months till when I signed the purchase agreement. And we knew that though. That's the other key thing is like, I knew I wanted it to happen before busy season. And she knew it was imperative that it happened. It could either happen before busy season or well after, but we can't do it, in the middle of it. So, yeah.
And what a gift that it gives you 4 years from the close to figure out and get Mary and Jane to where you want it to be and still have additional income. It's a great story. Okay. So now, you had the 4 years. How is Mary and Jane doing now?
Yeah. And also one point about the 4 years, we ended up bringing it down to 3, and she offered to pay that 4th year now. So that was an interesting piece to sweeten the deal of like, when I said we came back to the same exact one, right? It was pretty much the same, but she was also like, I'm not growing it at the exact rate I thought. So it became this moment a little bit of like, okay, how can we both, it was a renegotiation of sorts, right?
Yeah. How can everyone win? How can everyone win?
Yeah. And it got to be, well, look, how about the 4th year? I'll pay that right now. Cause they have,
That's awesome.
and it's been just going back and forth. And that was perfectly helpful too at the time, because money now is a lot better in 4 years. So,
Yeah.
anyways, Minnie and Paul, Mary and Jane, rather. How often do I do that? A lot.
I'm sure.
How is Mary and Jane doing now? It is going great. We're less than 2 years in. We hit our, over a million like months and months ago, which is one of those things where it took me 5 years to hit a million at Minnie and Paul. And the reason I bring that up is because it's a proud stat that I think a lot of women should be cognizant of, is because there's only 2% of women-owned businesses hit $1 million, and
That's right.
stat,
It's very significant. Hitting the million, your first million is very, very significant for a number of reasons. It's extremely significant to go into being a 7-figure business. So that's awesome. So that was pretty much right away.
Not right away, but certainly in the under 18-month mark.
Yeah, that's huge.
Just sort of like it's going at a different speed, and it's going from a lifestyle business to a scalable business that is something that we're growing really fast, and we're in a friends and family round now, and we're kind of like, oh God, we gotta keep up with the pressure that's mounting, and people are loving the product so much, and some people hate it, and some people are obsessed with it, and that's the fun part about having like a very specific audience you're talking to. But it's going really great, and it's changed my life personally, like the product itself. And I love that component about it. It makes it very easy to sort of like wake up every day and be really excited about what you're doing. But I also some of the messages we get from different customers and people that are like, oh, I used to drink a bottle of wine a night, and now I'm hooked on Sunny, and you have helped me in a lot of ways outside of just my
awesome
fun life. But like, I'm just overall, like, wellness and redefining what wellness is an exciting time. And it's the industry's in its infancy, so that's also really fun to be part of. But it's ever changing and very challenging as well when it comes to regulations. So high stress, high risk, high reward. It's fun, it's exciting. But I can already, you got to prevent the burnout already. I can sense it's that.
Well, because you go all in. I mean, I see this about you. Like you're all in on this, and which is amazing, but it's also a lot. And it's like we're wired to continue to jump in. I just was talking about this on LinkedIn a moment ago, like right before our podcast. I was talking about how one of the misconceptions is women wanted to sell, and it was for X million versus Y million, and Y million wasn't enough to live the rest of her life without working. And I said, here's the thing, like every founder I see who exits, unless they're physically unable to, they all start something new, because what is so incredible about the whole thing is the journey. It's the build. And so for you, I hope you continue to enjoy this build. I am rooting for you. I can't wait to try it. I got it in the mail. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Thank you. And, I hope everybody checks out Mary and Jane. And thank you for sharing so openly your insights and experiences.
Thank you. This has been really fun. I do think when it comes to, small business owners, it's hard to even understand how can I do this? How could I sell this thing? So that's something that I feel like I want to always help people in that regard of like, if you're at all thinking about it, and even if it's at a place of like, I'm just sick of it, or it's not doing well and I want to get rid of it, like new doors will open. So I do find that like it's very fun to talk about.
Yes.
That it's not just the big, huge businesses that sell and exit, and it's something to still like really be proud of, to sell a small business, and it can lead to the next thing. And I've learned so much already along the way from that to where I'm at now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me.